G'day, 3 drivers disqualified. Oscar wins his 3rd F1 race and talks of Liam being demoted to V-carb as early as next race. And for those not yet committed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button now while I play the intro. Well, an average day for Ferrari turned very sour late in the day yesterday when they were handed 2 disqualifications, meaning Lewis and Charles scored no points for the day. That's a total loss of 18 points in a championship year that will be tight. So how were the drivers when they found out? Well, this news came through late, and as such the drivers would have left the track. In short, the thickness of this particular piece of wood and resin that runs underneath the car was not thick enough, and only by half a millimetre. You certainly wouldn't have picked that up with your eyes, but that is a breach of FIA rules, and as such, Lewis dipped out on any points. So when you look at Lewis's situation, he's gone from this incredible high of winning his first race since, Belgium last year in the sprint race, and then getting no points in the main race despite finishing 6th. One of the winners out of all this was Esteban Ocon, because he originally finished 7th and suddenly bumped up to 5th. That's a fantastic effort for the Haas, and his teammate Ollie Behrman also jumped 2 places too. Charles, on the other hand, was done for a car being too light. There is a minimum weight that you must bring your car back to Parc Fermé with. And because he only had 1 pit stop, the tyres wore down a lot more, and 4 of the actual rubber tyres account for 40-odd kilograms of weight, and they can reduce by up to 3 kilograms over the course of a race. Now, George had a similar problem back in Spa, won the race, and then after he'd left the track, found out he'd lost it. Exactly the same as Charles. He's come in too light, and at the time of him recording these interviews out in the TV media pen, he would have had no idea that he was light. Perhaps he might have thought, with a 1 stopper, am I pushing the envelope? Well, it turns out the answer is indeed yes. And then there was a 3rd driver disqualified, Pierre Gasly, for exactly the same problem that Charles had. No doubt Ferrari today will be a very solemn affair back at the home base, and McLaren a completely different situation. Oscar Piastri winning his 3rd F1 race in style. Oscar makes me laugh because he is such a lovely guy, so quiet, unassuming, and when he has a win, you get a little bit of a spark, but it's certainly no George Russell, it's no Carlos Sainz, certainly nothing like Daniel Ricciardo, his fellow Australian driver who won in China back in 2018. I was there for it, and he did this. But those two are markedly different characters. Parc Fermé was on the track this year, and I was behind Oscar as he got out and acknowledged the crowd. And then when it came to the podium ceremony, I admit I had a tear in my eye hearing the Australian national anthem because we hardly hear it. It's such a rarity, not like the Dutch or the Brits who get to hear it quite often. I heard it twice last year, and I think I'll be hearing it at least another 5 times this year with Oscar, which would make him equal with Daniel Ricciardo on 8 Formula 1 race wins. While up on the podium too, I noticed that that glass, when it gets splattered with champagne, does in fact become quite hard to see through. But after the boys had finished up on the podium, it was down to the media pen for Oscar, and then it was off to the press conference, and he said it was the most complete win for him because of the first 2 were unusual circumstances. And then it was down to the celebration in pit lane, both Lando and Oscar, hugs from team principals and CEOs. And then Lando sidled up to one of his crew and he warned him about the bubbly, don't douse me. Well, there were 2 celebration photos. The first one I shot tight, and then the second one shot wide because I knew this was going to happen. Lando was very quick to escape.
You're a chicken. Cuckoo-ca-cha!
And then Oscar was quick to follow him, and he took off down pit lane for about 40 metres. I thought at one stage he's not coming back. He did come back, and I got a chance to shake his hand, well, his soggy hand, because he had copped a little bit of that champagne. And when he returned to the group, Lando had already been hit with champagne, and he copped some down his back while he wasn't looking. And to my surprise, there was still quite a large crowd across the track in the grandstand waiting and watching all of this carry on, and Oscar gave him a wave, but unlike Lewis the day prior, who went out on the pit lane wall to acknowledge him, he didn't do that. He stayed with the crew, posed for this last pick, and then headed out the back to do another interview. He'd already done one with Sky, and he went back out and did a second one. And it was at that point I noticed that his manager, Anne Webber, had a broken arm, exactly the same as David Coulthard. And David actually had his wrapped with a bicycle inner tube. Oscar is a special kind of racer, clinical, precise on track, and off track, just a normal guy. And I should point out that he pulled up in Parc Fermé at 4:37 p.m. and he was still doing interviews at 6:13 p.m. And I imagine he probably had an engineering meeting to go back to in the hospitality suite afterwards. Alex Albon, on the other hand, finished at 5:13 p.m. and was heading back to his hospitality suite with his girlfriend Lily He, and I couldn't believe how affectionate and warm and happy both of them were. It was actually Alex's 29th birthday. But I stayed with them for about 90 seconds, and there was plenty of starry-eyed looks and hand-holding on that journey. And now on to the other big story of late last night. Rumours that Liam Lawson could be heading for a demotion to Racing Bulls. I saw Liam at the airport this morning. He was dressed casually in light-coloured jeans and a white shirt, a couple of big suitcases, and I said to him, "Where's your security?" Because the night prior, Kimi Antonelli was nearly mobbed down there. He had security, like Kimi Räikkönen was going back a number of years ago when I shot these pictures as he was leaving China. But after just 2 races with Red Bull, Liam is under huge pressure. There is a meeting this week back at Milton Keynes for the Red Bull hierarchy to decide on what they can do, because at the moment they're hemorrhaging points big time and pretty much it's just up to max. Ted Kravitz was quite blunt when he spoke to Christian Horner.
You didn't pay off Checo for this?
Well, Christian didn't want to be drawn on it at all. He wouldn't give a commitment that Liam would be racing in Japan. He's done that before with Checo. Perez wouldn't give a commitment, and Checo has rolled up after that summer break last year to continue with the team. So I don't know if you can read much into that. And then today we're hearing stories that perhaps Colapinto might end up at Racing Bulls and Yuki upgraded to Red Bull. But there is certainly plenty for Christian to think about. And on top of that, I see several reports in Dutch newspapers talking about Christian's ex-PA, who was at the centre of all the allegations earlier last year, is now taking him to court civilly. And that will take some time to play out through the courts. Now, it's not reported in Britain. As I understand it, British law doesn't allow for that sort of thing to be reported. If you're living in Britain now, I doubt very much whether you would have seen anything in your newspapers, on the TV or on the radio. I'd be very surprised if that gets to court. I think a settlement is probably the most likely outcome. Other stuff from the weekend, Nico Hülkenberg, or Hülkenberg if you take the German pronunciation, has not had the umlaut over the U on any of his stuff in the paddock for a couple of years now. However, I did see him with a drink bottle with an umlaut over the U on the weekend. And it's a current one too. It's a Albon. You know this man, Ollie? He's a talented crew member at Red Bull. He paints something interesting in pit lane every race. This was his design for this race. But then I actually went up to McLaren, and that's where Red Bull were positioned last year, and last year's drawing was still visible. Let's talk about dads at the track, and there were a proliferation of fathers in attendance. Esteban Ocon's dad, Laurent, was there, and I got this lovely picture after Esteban had done his media stuff on the Sunday. Lando Norris's dad, Adam, was with him. Kimi Antonelli's father, Marco. Lewis Hamilton's dad, Anthony. Jack Doohan's dad, Mick. And Oliver Behrman's father, David, was beaming on Sunday night after a good result for his son. Disappointing Oscar's dad wasn't there. Chris was at the Melbourne Grand Prix, as was his mum and sister, but unfortunately neither or none at this race. The question, can any of the drivers draw? Well, I think that is questionable because they were asked quickly in the paddock to do a piece of art on this piece of Corflute by one of the teams. I think it was the VCARB crew. And this is what I saw. Esteban Ocon's Eiffel Tower. Carlos did a familiar chili. We have Pierre Gasly with whatever that is. Is that a banana? I think it is. Yuki on a bicycle. Alex with a funny face. And this red one here is Oscar Piastri's version of a kangaroo. And if you're wondering about the scribble there, that is Lance Stroll's signature. I think Lance misconstrued the question. He thought an autograph was required when in fact they asked him for a drawing. Next time. There was a marriage proposal in the grandstand. This fella had managed to get the microphone for the PA and asked his partner to marry him, and she said yes. Exciting times. No pictures of this, but I can tell you that Lewis Hamilton on the Sunday, and by the way, he came in Ferrari kit all 4 days, no fashion gear, here in China. Walked through the gates, stopped to sign something, and then suddenly hundreds, or no, maybe not hundreds, tens, came running for him, and he thought, right, I've got a bolt. There was no security around. He had to run all the way to the hospitality suite through the paddock, and that is a big paddock. See these patches here? They're sewn over the top of some conflicting sponsors. This one's a crypto sponsor for Alpine. And I found out from one of the team members that the fine for the teams, if they allow stuff like that to go uncovered, is £1,000 or euros. So if there are 7 people with those logos visible, that's £7,000 or euros goes straight to the FIA. And this pouch here is not covering up anything. I'm told that that's where the radio receiver sits so that the drivers can communicate. Still on race suits, you probably know that on the cars of the Williams drivers, there's those little yellow ovals with their names on it. But I noticed walking behind Carlos that they also have that on their back right shoulder. But I'm not sure why you'd have the guy's name on the back. I guess if you're walking behind, It easily identifies them. Here's my start shot from the sprint on Saturday. And this is an interesting position to shoot from because it's actually in this gantry. This is the starter's gantry, and coming up shortly, I'm going to do a video about how the starting procedure works, because I spent about 15 minutes up there prior to the start, watched the start, and I learnt so much. I think you're going to love that video coming up shortly. Make sure you're subscribed. As you know, every week I go through what my most popular post was on Instagram, and I can tell you it was this one, Charles and Alexandra in the paddock. It was my second most popular post, though. Another picture of the pair. So yes, I get the message, people. That's the content you want, so trust me, as a marketer, I'm going to continue to deliver for you. And finally, I wanted to take you to dinner to show you some of the interesting food that's on offer here in Shanghai. And I picked this barbecue place because I came here last night and I thought it had an interesting blend of good food and bizarre food. So let's have a look at the menu. Now, the way you order is you fill in this form here and you put numbers next to each other. So here's what I've ordered. A dozen lamb skewers, grilled lamb tripe skewer, lean lamb, boneless chicken feet, beef patty whack, pork intestines, pork belly, beef ribs, fried potatoes, fried rice, and 10 sliced potato skewers. Now, you must get one of these. There's like a gel on that, and this goes here. Now, straight up, this barbecue is stinking hot. This is like a sauna in here, to be honest. The lamb skewer's going on first, and then it goes progressively more adventurous. It's beautiful. Next up, three interesting ones. The left one is grilled lamb tripe. The middle one is beef patty whack, and the one on the right is pork intestines. This one is beef patty whack. I don't know what that is, and I probably don't want to know. Oh. That's not even chewable, that's like rubber. Pork intestine. That's not chewy, that's gooey, rubbery. I think I'd be better off if I didn't know what the hell it was, quite frankly. Also ordered roast potatoes and rice. Now, this might be all right. This is beef ribs. Yeah, normal meat for me. This is lean lamb, about $1 US. Pretty much the same as the other lamb skewers. But this is the one I'm most afraid of. This is boneless chicken feet. Nah, can't do it. Oh, I don't know how anyone can eat that. I think you have to be brought up on it, like Vegemite. It's terrible. And the final item on the menu is pork belly. Nothing wrong with that. Oh, well, that's the end of my meal. 174 Chinese yuan. It's about 24 US dollars. What would I order again? The lamb, the beef, rice, definitely, and the potatoes. None of the other exotic stuff. And with that said, and that off my head. Thanks for sticking around to the end, and for a whole lot of extra content on social media and merchandise at kimelman.com. That's where you need to go. Thanks for watching, and stay passionate.